Good afternoon, IS501. I know this is a week one post. I'm quite late on it. Thought I had done it sooner. Realized that I hadn't as I look back. So week one, trying to figure out what worship is. Uh, what what exactly is going to be happening in this class, and I kind of have an idea since it is like week 7, I think now, the end of week 7. And um, I wanted to go back and think about like what worship is, and Farraden had talked about like worship being more corporate, and while there's a truth to that we do worship corporately, and I want to say that it's more often than not that's where we see worship occurring in the way that we think about what worship is, as a Christian community. But I kind of want to go against that a bit. Worship isn't only corporate, and we often often I think we associate worship with the music portion. Um, for me, I am able to worship, yes, through music. Not my talents. If you heard my musical abilities, it would not be worship at all. I am fairly gifted, with the fine arts, and I will draw, you know, things for people often as tattoo designs. But I love to incorporate my faith. Um, I did a locket one time of a heart, and it was opened up, and inside, was the cross and clouds and sunbursts, um, and gave it to a youth who, that was how they felt. And so for me, it was a good opportunity to worship God, and to give that gifting to someone to take home. Um, Professor Oden often talks about orthodoxy, orthopraxy, and um, orthopraxy, and he's talked about it in another class that I've had with him. I think it was another IS class. Um, but I love this that he incorporates it. I think with most of his classes, the right belief, the right feelings, and the right practices, um, because I do see that this is an aspect of worship. Um, and I know that orthodoxy is going to get weird. Fuller has so many people from so many denominations, so orthodoxy, uh, isn't going to be absolute between all of us, um, and for that matter, probably orthopathy or orthopraxy may not either. But if we break it down to some of the things I think we all will have in common is love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of, your strength. Um, and love your neighbor as yourself. I think that for us, this is a right belief, a right, feeling, and a right practice, and we can incorporate this, and we can live Christ likeness, out for others to see. Um, I am in my uniform, and often I can't talk about, Jesus openly, um, unless it's like I'm going to do it, volunteer. You don't have to be there. If it's a mandatory setting, I have to be very careful with what I say and how I say it. So in that way, I have a right belief that I have. I have a belief that, others may not share, and but my practices, my feelings will always reflect what it is I believe, um, even if I can't outwardly, say it. I can live it out. As far as what worship is, through the reading, I found a quote through Moltmann, um, page 26 in chapter 1. He's talking about the unmoved, mover, and how that is, a little different from the living God of the Old and New Testament. And he says this: God goes out of God's self and loves the beings God created. God's love for those God has created is the first thing. The love for God by the beings whom God has created is the second, and used to be said, the God who loves human beings makes human beings who love God. And God's love for us is first. I think that's evident in the fact that we're here. And our love for God, to me, what that is saying, if we're able to do that, it is worship. It might come in many different forms. It might be through the fine arts, it might be through music, it might be through sermons, through writing books, through taking classes, teaching classes. It might just be through loving God and letting that love for God be proclaimed to everybody who sees you. Um, we in a couple of my classes we've talked about this, and it is something that I always try to keep at the forefront of my mind is with mission. And stay with me. Um, in the Old Testament, it was predominantly centripetal. And in that, Israel was a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, something that we are also told that we are. And in that, they were like, you ever see one of those porch lamps? You turn it on, like all the gnats flock to it. Well, our love for God is like that, and that's how mission was in the Old Testament predominantly. That their love for God was so bright and was so like tangible that uh, the other countries, the other people around us, flock to us like gnats. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what makes us so set apart, so much different than everybody else, who is, you know, more concerned with themselves and building a name for themselves, putting themselves in a god likeness, like putting themselves on the pedestal, um, and being God in their own lives. And so by doing this, we're able to do mission without necessarily going out, although that is an aspect that's a centrifugal mission, and that's more in the New Testament, but it's it's both. And so what Moltmann is getting at, I think, or what I'm taking from it rather, in regards to worship, is that loving the living God, you know, with all of us, and he uses Psalm 42 with the living water, or I'm sorry, um, yeah, my soul thirsts for God, for the living God, and it talks about in that psalm, like the deer thirst for water, right, from a stream. Um, the word my soul, very interesting, and I love that word because it's not just soul. It's like your living entity, your body, your it's both. So even when we in Deuteronomy 6, in the Shema, love the Lord your God with all your heart. Well, heart is also mind. So it's both. So heart and mind. Nephesh, which is soul. And you might also use body. So it might be, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your uh, heart, mind, soul, body, and then the strength. That might also be translated similarly to like all that's left over, all of your oomph. And I think in doing that, it's worship. Um, this is obviously longer than a couple of minutes, so I'm gonna stop here. But um, for me, that what Moltmann said there brought up so many emotions just in that first chapter. Um, it can be corporate, like Faradin is saying, um, but I don't think it just has to be. So that's what I have for this week, which was like 6 weeks ago. Um, but yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free, hit me up. Thanks, guys. God bless.